Welcome to It Starts With You, where we cut through the noise and get real about the behaviours that shape our lives, both personally and professionally. I'm Vic O'Farrell. Let's jump in because behaviours start with you. Welcome to another episode of It Starts With You, and I am just so excited to be joined by the guest this week because this is a relationship with someone I worked with, and we met. Well, I know we both hate saying it, but it's like 25 years ago. And connection is key, and we'll be talking about that. But before we get in and dive into that, Wendy, would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers and listeners and let everybody know what it is that you do now?
Certainly. It's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me along, first of all. My name's Wendy Bell, and I am the director of the event group and a partner in a consultancy business called Bright Bell Consulting. So I'm a bit busy at the moment.
Lots of stuff. So, I mean, when we met 25 years ago, we worked for a company called at the time Regus, they're IWG, I think they are now. Um, you were the commercial director, I was the sales director, and we just got on really well because we both respected each other's jobs. I know many people, not so much in Regis, but sales and ops were always like polar opposites, a bit like sales and marketing. In fact, maybe it's just sales and everyone. We're a particular kind of personality style. But we got on very well through that mutual respect. Um, and we've done business since then, which is lovely. Thank you very much for bringing me into a previous company. But you have always, the way I say it, Wendy, is that you are about connections, you are about collaboration, but you never shine the light on yourself. In fact, you shy away from that. But you love shining the light on other people. And you get that's what feeds you. It's like your kind of your success values if you think about it. What does it actually give you shining the light on the people around you?
I think I've always considered myself a people person, and I love seeing other people be successful. So that gives me huge amounts of job satisfaction. I think one of the things when I first started managing people was I was actually looking for people that would go through career ladder, for example. I always thought one day it'd be really lovely to look back and think, actually, I spotted that person and they're now running a multi-million pound company. And, I saw that in them and helped them develop that and put them on the right path. So that's always been a real driver for me. And just like seeing people do well. It's how I've always been, and it gives me, it makes me feel good when I see other people do well. And sometimes it's nice to feel like I've had a little bit of a hand in that. And yeah, so I think that's why I've always been quite a good manager, is because actually I like to see other people succeed, and I like to feel that I've helped them on their path. So
Mm.
always getting my success through other people has always been something that has driven me and motivated me.
Yeah, and running your own business now. I mean, so in terms of like personalities and disc terms, colours, whatever you want to call it, you're very green, but you're also very yellow and you're also very red. So you've got a real, you're not like me, I'm an extreme yellow and I have to be very self-aware and very, very self-conscious when I'm with people who aren't. But I am aware of it because, well, I couldn't really be the queen of behaviors if I wasn't, would I? But it was like you as a manager, and I saw it when I came in to do the work with you in your previous company, and I could see the red driver in you. So you've set this new Gatwick Chamber Company up, Crawley Gatwick Chamber Company. I'll get that the right way round. Which is a networking organization. And like I say, you are a connector. You love to see people do business with each other, but you also have to drive to do it for yourself. So how do you, I mean, just before we started recording, we talked about, it can be quite lonely sitting at home when you've just got the dog to shelter.
It's very lonely.
So how do you motivate yourself to, it's that red part of you that's like, is it all on you to succeed?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's quite nice actually. So in a previous career, I actually moved away from managing other people because I wanted to prove that I could do it myself. And I just think, sometimes some people it's easier to get the results for other people. And I just felt that actually I needed to sort of put my money where my mouth was and actually go out and prove that I could actually sell, that I could deliver good services that people would want to buy from me. And I did, and I was very successful. But it was a bit of a shock that I could actually do it myself. That sounds terrible, but it's true. And it was quite for me. It was quite useful, and it actually helped me drive. So I'm always very um, goal focused. So, I know what I want to achieve. And I've always felt that within an organization, I've always known what I wanted to achieve for that organization. So now it's just about translating that into knowing what I want to achieve for the businesses that I'm involved with and running. So um, it's interesting because two of the businesses I'm involved with are partnerships, and they are very different people that I'm working with. Um, and so that's quite interesting. So actually, funny enough, one of them I was thinking about what colour they are at the moment. So I think they're probably red. I think they're probably red and yellow, and we are. Yeah, there's some interesting dynamics of I think I could see from that. But it's quite interesting. So that's actually making me think about how I change how I am with them, so that they are um so they get the best out of our relationship as well, and so do I, so that I get the best out of our relationship too. So it's been really useful, and especially with the training you did with us was brilliant. It was so eye-opening. And although I'd done something similar with a different organisation previously, it was really nice to see it in the context with my team. And I think we all benefited from that, and it really certainly opened my eyes to other people's behaviors and how to try and get the best out of the relationship. And it's not always easy, and there's no quick fix, and there's no magic wand. There's always two people in a relationship, and you've both got to try and make it work. So, but I think it helped them as well, and I think in the long run, it's really, really beneficial.
Yeah, and it was in fact actually when we met recently, there was one of your previous team there that evening. She said, "Oh, I remember you, yeah." And it is it's doing behaviours is not a one a tick box exercise. It's something that we have to embed. And actually, if there's anybody that's watching or listening to this that actually knew me and Wendy when we worked at Regus, for me in those days I saw very much more the green side of you, because it was all about the people, because it was people, it was offices, it was, but you were looking after the teams, you had the receptions, you had loads of people, you were not just looking after the team, but you were looking after the clients and then the stakeholders and all of those wonderful people that we remember.
Try to get people to
When
pay.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's that then actually I see the red in you as well, which green and red are very opposite, but I can see the red in you when you're actually driving a business forward. It's just like, no, 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 no. This is business. I'm not running a charity. I'm running a business. We need to make money and we need to grow. And that's the other side that I've now seen of you that I really admire. I really admire that you've set this Crawley Gatwick Chamber up because you have a need to connect the networks, but also to serve the people, but from a business point of view. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing to have all of those different personality types. I don't have green or blue in my personality. So I admire it when I see it, because I know it takes a lot to do what you do. Um,
Well, I think when we worked together, it was one of the things I absolutely admired about you was how great you were at selling. And you were just so good at it. You were so driven. And I was like, wow, I wish I could be a bit more Vic sometimes. And I think there's times in your life when I learn from other people and I watch other people and watch how they interact and how they do things. And sometimes I just think I just can't be as good as them at that. But I try and learn a little bit and try and do a bit better. I always like to think that every single interaction I have with people, I take something from it in a positive way. I learn something from it, and even when there's sort of been some difficult interactions, I still go away and I think about how I behaved and what I did, and I think that kind of comes a little bit from um, a long, long time ago, I was a training officer and we used to write our own self-assessments. And, typically you're always really hard on yourself, but then I was just, well, that's just to improve. and to, always, I love continuous improvement and learning, and that's something that I really enjoy, and I get a real kick from it. So, and I just think, oh, actually, I learned that. I put that into practice, and that worked for me. But, sometimes you don't always realize that's what you've learned, but until you go away and think about it, which was, I think, one of the things I learned from being a training officer is actually go away, look at your performance, think about how you could have done something differently, maybe, and got a different result. And I think that's why I really love the training that we did. I felt it was so beneficial that I could learn and to different things, try something a bit different. Um, yeah, fantastic training that we did. I really so much from it.
Oh, well, I'm delighted you did. And, obviously we're still talking now. But when you say about, oh, I admire and I wish I could be a bit more like them, there's some limiting beliefs coming in there, I can see. I can see that bit of self-doubt because I've done it before. I've given a keynote, come off stage, and someone's gone, "Oh my God, I want to speak like you." And I went, "No, don't want to speak like me. Want to speak like you, but with more confidence. That's all it is. Don't try and be me. No, there's only one me. In fact, actually, there was something that I wrote down on my notes here from the weekend. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, people. I shuffle my paper. Yes, Larry Long said this at the conference. You are always replaceable, but never replicable. I was like, oh, I like that. Wrote that down
Hmm,
because
that's
there's only
really
one
good.
Wendy. There's only one Wendy Bell. Yeah, and you are great at sales. You just, you look at what you're doing. You're running successful companies, so you are great at sales. But it's a different sale to what I'm selling. You're selling a network. You're selling a membership, and I think the reason you're great at sales for that is because you're so passionate about connecting other people, and you are so passionate about Crawley town having a voice. So what was talk to me a little bit more about the chamber and the reason for it. So if the people are listening, going, "Oh, I want to get involved with that."
Um, so in at the end of March, Crawley Town Centre Business Improvement District closed. So after its first term. So what had happened prior to that was the bid had been involved with speaking up for the town centre, making sure that it had a voice, that businesses were being heard. So the town centre in Crawley is made up of not just retailers, it's made up of quite a lot of big professional services firms. So suddenly they lost their voice. The previous chambers of commerce, town chambers of commerce, had actually closed down last year. So there was a bit of a vacuum there, and I felt really strongly that there's a lot going on at the moment with devolution, with the local government reorganisation, and there was a missing gap. There was no one speaking for these businesses, and there was no unifying organisation that would put forward their views. Um, Crawley is a really thriving um, and intense business community. But sometimes it can be quite insular. It can be quite self-serving in terms of it only looks what's going on within the town and Gatwick. So I felt like there was a real something really missing. There was missing a trick, and there's lots of other fantastic business support organisations out there. You've got Sussex Chamber of Commerce, for example. You've got Gatwick Diamond Business, and they're great, but they are regional organisations. They are not specifically for this area. So this is my town. I was born and bred here, and I want the businesses to have their say. I want them to have a seat at the table. I want them to try and influence the decisions that are being made that will affect all of the businesses. That there's no one speaking up for them at the moment. So I felt it was really, really important that we had an organisation there that was devoted and dedicated to making sure this happened, and that's where CGC Company was born.
Let's hit pause so I can tell you how I work with leaders and teams to turn behaviour into results. Have you got a panel session coming up? Panel guests should do more than just fill the time. They should spark change. I bring fresh, practical insights that challenge thinking and inspire action. It starts with you, and together we'll make it happen. And I think that's the difference that I see from the other, perhaps networking, pure networking for businesses to do business with other people. Absolutely, and there's loads of those out there. But you're more about, yes, that's absolutely part of it, but it's also about your voice
Yeah,
into local government. And that's the bit that I know that you focus on because it is all about, improvements for the town.
certainly.
So you're now dealing with you've put a board together, so you have different personalities on there.
Yes.
You've got the people that you serve of Crawley, so the different business owners that you're now dealing with. You're also in sales because you're trying to sell membership as well as your other board members, I'm sure. So there's lots of different people that you're now interacting with. What do you think is your biggest challenge of people challenge, that is, not business challenge?
Think it's people's time actually. And also there are elements of economic uncertainty at the moment as well. And again, as I say, there's a lot of change going on. But there are an awful lot of opportunities. Change always brings opportunities, but it's about actually getting people to think about that and focus on that and not get caught up in doomsday sort of theories that sort of seem to be happening all the time. So it's just about keeping it real and making sure that people just, yeah, recognize. Because I'm really concerned that businesses are sleepwalking into what's going to happen to the to the local authority changes that businesses don't realize it will have a massive impact. And we saw that at the bid. So many of the businesses were like, well, it'll happen or it won't happen. And, there's nothing we can do about it. I want to tell people, yes, there is absolutely things you can do about it. At least express your opinion, if nothing else.
Mm.
So I think, that's the thing that worries me the most is apathy and people just not really thinking that their voice matters, and it really does. So yeah, so that's where I'm coming from.
And do you know what? I mean, there's a God. I was trying to think how many counties are going through this devolution thing. I don't really understand it. All I knew was that we didn't get a local election. I'm like, well, what will be, will be. I don't, I'm not a massively political person, but I love how passionate you are about the fact that you say, yes, but there is something you can do about it. And actually, that phrase of sleepwalking into it, it's going to happen. And if we haven't had a voice, we can't complain about it afterwards because we didn't get involved with it. What do you see as the biggest change that will happen to Crawley?
Well, there is potential that we won't have Crawley Borough Council anymore. So, the council that has been established for, many, many years, as a unitary authority to actually make decisions and have some spending power may not even exist anymore. So, where these people are, we we um, charge them with looking after our town and making good decisions in terms of regeneration and in terms of funding that gets moved along, then that might not be there anymore. And people just don't realise that, they just think, the status quo will remain, but it could be really different. And that's why it's really important that we get in front of the Sussex mayoral candidates. Crawley contributes a massive amount of GDP to the county. We've been punching above our weight for many, many years. Um, and we've got the new runway at Gatwick as well. So as I say, there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of opportunities, but it's about making sure that businesses realise what those opportunities could be and are able to grasp them.
Hmm. So how can you use? So you need to really hone in a bit more on your red and your green, because your green is that's reserved and people focused, but it's very much about the community and it doesn't like change. But you've also got your red because you've got to get these other people who are sleepwalking to actually open their eyes. You've got to wake them up. So how do you channel both personalities so that you're not got an internal conflict, but that you're getting your message across?
So I think the most important thing is making sure that the right people are meeting the right people at the right time. So and in the right circumstances as well. So um, one of the things we're looking to do is to do some roundtable lunches with no more than 8 to 10 businesses, along with a guest speaker. So it will be people like Richard Freeman, who's runs Always Possible, and I would say he's probably our leading local expert in what's happening with devolution and local government reorganisation. So the businesses can ask the questions and start to understand what it really means. So, there's an education piece, but then there's also a piece about the businesses being able to voice their views in very small groups. We are looking to get the Sussex mayoral candidates along so that they understand what the businesses are looking for from a Sussex mayor, and maybe to express some of our concerns about, Crawley being left behind, because, the seat of power for West Sussex has always been Chichester, and whether that will still be the same or whether that will change. It's quite important for us to understand that,
Mm,
and actually to remind, um, that powers that may be based in Chichester, that actually Crawley is a massive stakeholder in this county,
mm,
and it needs to be counted and it needs to be listened to, and respected. So,
yeah.
um, there's those types of things that we'll do. We'll also do some bigger events where we can do some more mass education, if you like, for want of a better
Mm,
expression, um, and just get people involved and engaged in their local area, and understanding that, as I say, apathy is a big, big thing. Um, in lots of businesses where people just believe it's going to happen to them regardless of what
mm,
they say. So, we'll have lunches with Peter Lamb, who's the local MP for the area, so that he can actually directly understand what the businesses in this area want from him as our representative at Parliament as well. So we're
mm,
also looking to do tea on the terrace at the Houses of Parliament as well. So where we get Peter Lamb to sponsor our businesses going up there to actually understand the behind the scenes. It becomes much more of an experience, and then you
yeah.
walk away feeling like, actually, we can make a difference here.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. So if you're listening from overseas, I mean, if you're in the UK, there's so many counties going through the devolution process. If you're listening from overseas, I'm sure you've probably also had stuff that's gone on that you've thought, well, it's government, it will just get it just that's the thing. I think we I'm a bit like that. Well, it just gets done, and then you look at things like Brexit here in the UK. I mean, let's not have a massive conversation around it, but Brexit, where people go, oh my God, we're out. And now, actually, when people have looked at the impact of coming out of Europe, because it was just like, well, it'll just happen, and it's like, no, no, no. We need to. Oh, I don't really want to get really political on here, but I think sometimes we get fed what we want to hear, and we just expect that. So it's a bit like I talk to people on in terms of behaviours. If you just sit and look at your phone and just doom scroll your whole way to work on the train, you've probably followed seven more accounts, unfollowed seven, hated this person, got a new opinion on that, and it's like it's just opinions. We need to have conversations, real
Yeah.
connections with people. So, what would be your tip to if somebody else going through some major change that's just thinking it's just going to happen, and not so much in Crawley, but anywhere? If people are walking into a situation in work where they think, well, we're having a restructure, I'm not going to really, it's not going, I can't, it's going to impact me, but I can't influence it. What would you say to people like that?
Think the most important thing is to ask lots of questions so that you know what to expect, what other people are planning for you. And then actually sometimes you can change their views. So I think I've been in that position before, fun enough, at Regus, when we were at Regus, where they completely restructured, and I was sitting in a conference and looked up at a screen and went, "Oh, I haven't got a job anymore. That's interesting." And then we went broke for coffee, and we were all like, "Oh, what are we going to be doing?" So I think, and that was that's a huge conference. So and we were sort of asking each other questions about what we thought we might do, and what roles we might take. But then I went away and asked lots of questions of the management, my line management, and said, okay, so where are you thinking what I might do? What do you think? And they were like, well, apply for whatever you want. And I was like, well, okay, that's really helpful. So so I went away and I applied for the roles I wanted, and I'd got a completely different one. And then I left a month later because it wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't what I'd applied for. And my personal circumstances wouldn't allow me to continue in that role. So it was like, you didn't actually listen to me, so it's great. So sometimes, you can't change the outcomes, but sometimes you can. And I really believe be careful what you say to people because sometimes they take it at face value and they believe what you want. Um, that's happened to me before where someone asked me if I wanted a particular role and I said no because I'd been covering it for 6 months and I really hated it at that point. Because nobody really took me seriously because I was only the cover. And then they gave it to somebody else and I was like, oh wow, I would quite like to be offered. So that's, my biggest tip is just say, be careful what you say and don't rule anything out too quickly because you might change your mind in the future.
Mm. Yeah, it's that. Okay, I might actually just give you the headline, but I need to give you a subtitle too,
Yeah.
because what you've said to me, that I'm going to translate it in my terms, and yet actually what I've realised is you might not have meant it like that. You might actually have wanted to give me some more detail behind it. So, good top tip. Um, Wonderful conversation, Wendy. And we're going to close this one up now. What would be your like final piece of advice for anyone listening to this about change that's happening that they're not getting involved with, don't think they can influence?
I would say keep your eyes and ears open, listen, ask lots of questions. But listen first and then ask the right questions so that you know what you're getting yourself into or out of.
Yeah. And that's probably the big bit, isn't it? Listening. People forget
Yeah.
to do that. So if anybody wants to find you, where's the best place to find Wendy Bell?
You can reach me on email under wendy@cgcnetwork.co.uk, or you can give me a call on 07985 or you can get me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And obviously, listeners, viewers, whatever you're doing, we'll have all of Wendy's details in the show notes. Wendy, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me along.
Well, that's today's dose of truth. Now go make it happen because behaviour drives behaviour, and behaviour starts with you.